Evening, everyone. I'd like to reconvene the open meeting at 7:10. And if you could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you could remain standing for a moment of silence as we consider the work before us this evening. You may be seated. And Mr. Levis, if you could notify the public of the emergency exits, please.
Sure. In case of emergency, there are exits to your rear. Either go out either exit to the. All right. So there are exits
Jim.
behind you. Go out the exit, and if you're in the foyer, you can exit to your left or right. If you go out the store, exit to your left. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Pearson, if you would honor us with reading the mission statement of Coventry Public Schools.
The Coventry Public Schools, with community partnerships, educate, inspire, and motivate students to be lifelong learners.
Thank you. And just to notify the public, the school committee met in executive session for about 15 minutes previous to this meeting. We had a couple of votes. One was to approve our executive session minutes from 5/9/19, and that was motion carried 5-0. And we also did a homeschooling request that also carried 5-0. That being said, is there a motion to seal the records of that executive session?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that the records of the executive session be kept closed pursuant to sections 42-46-4 and 42-46-5.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the minutes of the open meeting of May 9, 2019, May 14, 2019, May 21st, 2019, May 23rd, 2019, and June 13th, 2019 as presented/amended.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee on any of those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to personnel, certified recalls. Mr. Levis, did you want to speak to any of this or of those?
This is on, or
Madam Chair, I need to recuse for this part. Thanks.
I just want to say that, and I'll be brief. I just want to thank the community. I know it was quite disheartening after the first vote with a 2-1 against the municipal and the school budget, and I know that resonated with myself and many individuals on trying to figure out how do we engage a community, not just when there's a crisis, but every single day to keep people informed and understanding the educational process, understanding the budget process. But, you know, what I took that disheartened feeling and then for the next few weeks saw a community come together, every faction, you know, parents and graduates from the high school that I had known, teachers, elected officials, and just see people, business owners, just rally around this community. And so to me, that's the very positive, and that's why it's important in terms of tonight. Words can't describe the feeling. And again, I'm not in the position of someone being laid off, so I don't want to, minimize that. But sitting there and having to go through and see individuals stand and the impact that it has on individuals' lives, the impact it has on children. Many people talk about their favorite teachers. Kids would go home and hear that their favorite teacher is being laid off. It's devastating to a community, devastating to individuals. But to see that the fact that while we still are going to have 15 individuals this year that will be laid off, and my heart goes out to them, and we're hopeful that through the process we can bring back as many as possible. tonight we're able to recall, I believe it's 362 of those 385. And the reason the numbers don't add is we've had significant number of resignations in the last week of individuals that had said they were going to come back, maybe employed someplace else, but they're not. And hopefully that'll help us in terms of, as we do a job fair tomorrow, bring back some of those recall teachers. So to me, this it's a very positive, it's a silver lining that tonight we can recall the 362 teachers back to where they belong, in front of your kids, in front of our students. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Levis. I couldn't concur more. This is a much better motion to make than the one that laid off so many of us, our teachers. That being said, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'm going to have to recuse myself.
Okay, all right.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to recall the following 362 certified staff as listed in the recall list for the 2019-2020 school year.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 3 with 2 abstentions, or recusals, not abstentions, recusals. Moving on to certified resignations. Mr. Levis, did you want to talk?
No, just want to say just a general statement that we appreciate the service that all of these individuals, they've served a variety of different time and different roles in Coventry, but I think as we see, there's so many individuals that when I go around the state that are from Coventry that have continued their education, whether it's in a leadership role, another role, and they've excelled, and I think we'll see the same with many of these names in other communities or other roles. So I just want to thank them for their time.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the resignation of Louis Turchetta?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the resignation of Louis Turcetta, social studies teacher assistant at Coventry High School, effective June 11, 2019.
I second the
Social studies.
teacher.
Social
Studies teacher. Okay, Madam Chair, I'll read,
That's right.
I'll
It's
read
a
the motion
certified, yeah.
appropriately. Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the resignation of Louis Turcetta, social studies teacher at Coventry High School, effective June 11, 2019.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to Jennifer Donnelly Taylor. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the resignation of Jennifer Donnelly Taylor, school psychologist for the district, effective June 30th, 2019.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to Kathleen Teft.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the resignation of Kathleen Teft, guidance counselor at Coventry High School, effective June 3rd, 2019.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to Laura Pales. Palace. Sorry.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the resignation of Laura Pallas, English teacher at Alan Shawn Feinstein Middle School, effective June 14, 2019.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to Brittany Resendes. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the resignation of Brittany Resendes, school psychologist for the district, effective June 30th, 2019.
Second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to Shanna Factor.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve this resignation of Shanna Factor, math teacher at Coventry High School, effective June 17, 2019.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to Sarah Ligwall.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the resignation of Sarah Lingwell, culinary teacher at the Regional Career and Tech Center at Coventry High School, effective June 14, 2019.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to classified retirement. Did you want to speak to any of these? Yeah.
So Barbara is not retiring, Barbara Pelletier is not retiring until September 30th, but wanted just to read a little bit about Barbara. Barbara has worked at both Oak Haven and Tioga over 2 decades, 20 years in our school department. Her reliability and willingness to perform her duties each day is second to none. Barbara has the keen ability to go the extra mile to make sure that all students get what they need each day that she works at Tioga. She and her other supervisory assistant colleagues work in tandem to provide top-notch supervision in the lunchroom and during recess duty. She respects and values her coworkers and problem solves, keeping in mind the best interests of the students at all times. She will certainly be missed at Tioga upon her retirement. On behalf of the entire Tioga faculty and staff in the Coventry Public Schools, we extend Barbara our best wishes. We truly appreciate all that she has done for all of the students and staff over her time in the school district.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the resignation of Barbara Pelletier as supervisor yard aide at Tioga Elementary School, effective September 30th, 2019, for the purpose of retirement.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. I don't think she's here.
I
You can
don't,
send congratulations on her retirement. We wish her the best. Moving on to classified resignations. Did you want to speak to any of these?
just to thank again, there's 3 individuals, a variety of different roles, but I want to thank them for their service.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion for Brenda Bouchang?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the resignation of Brenda Beauchamp, one-on-one teacher assistant at Washington Oak Elementary School, effective June 10, 2019.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to David Nero. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the resignation of David Nero, registered nurse / student support at Coventry High School, effective August 9, 2019.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to Nancy Andrews.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the resignation of Nancy Andrews, 4-hour kindergarten teacher assistant at Tioga Elementary School, effective June 20th, 2019.
Second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to certified leave of absence. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve a leave of absence for Mrs. Paula Jacquard, grade 2 teacher at Washington Oak Elementary School for the 2019-2020 school year.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to certified appointments. Mr. Levis, did you want to speak to any of these?
So-
Ooh,
so-
there's a bunch of-
Yeah, so these are the curriculum coordinators, the PBGR, which is
Yep.
proficiency-based graduation requirement coordinators, and we are appointing a new dean at the high school. One of our deans is returning to the classroom, so that we're appointing a new dean, not a new position, but a new dean at the high school. So that's what these positions are.
Great. All right, is there a motion to approve Alan, oh no, wrong person, Nicola Schreib?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Nicola Schweb. Greg
Scheib.
Scheib, regular 1.0 math curriculum coordinator at Allen Shaw and Feinstein Middle School for the 2019-2020 through 2022-2023 school years, 4-year term.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Is Nicola here? Moving on to Don Puliano. Or, Pulano, sorry, it's my reading glasses I need. Pulano. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Dawn Polano, regular 1.0 ULSS curriculum coordinator at Allen Shaw and Feinstein Middle School for the 2019-2020 through 2022-2023 school years, parentheses, 4-year term.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to Courtney Macropolis. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Courtney Macropolis, regular 1.0 student services curriculum coordinator at Allen Shawn Feinstein Middle School for the 2020 to 2022-2023 school year, a 4-year term.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to Abby Sutton. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Abby Sutton, regular 1.0 curriculum coordinator at Allen Shawn Feinstein Middle School for the 2019-2020 to 2022 to 2023 school years, 4-year term.
Second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to Ted Mitchell. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Ted Mitchell, regular 1.0 social studies curriculum coordinator at Allen Shawn Feinstein Middle School for the 2019-2020 to 2022-2023 school years, 4-year term.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to Cynthia Ballard. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Cynthia Ballard, 1.0 ELA curriculum coordinator at Allen Shawn Feinstein Middle School for the 2019 to 2020 school year through 2022-2023 school years, 4-year term.
I second the motion.
Any question from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to William Smith. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint William Smith, regular 1.0 Unified Arts Curriculum Coordinator at Coventry High School for the 2019, 2020 to 2022, 2023 school years, 4-year term.
Second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to Julie Boyle. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Julie Boyle, 1.0 ELA Curriculum Coordinator at Coventry High School for the 2019, 2020 to 2022, 2023 school years, 4-year term.
Second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to Jacques Branchard. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Jacques Branchard, regular 1.0 Math Curriculum Coordinator at Coventry High School for the 2019, 2020 to 2022, 2023 school years, 4-year term.
Second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to Deborah Pacheco. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Deborah Pacheco, regular 1.0 Physical Education Curriculum Coordinator at Coventry High School for the 2019, 2020, 2022, 2023 school years, 4-year term.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to Shelley Begel. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Shelley Begelli, regular 1.0 ULSS Curriculum Coordinator at Coventry High School for the 2019, 2020 to 2022, 2023 school years, 4-year term.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to Anthony Masella. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Anthony Masella, PBGR Coordinator at Coventry High School, 1 year with 1-year renewal effective with the 2019-2020 school year.
Second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to Tiffany Reish. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Tiffany Rich, PBGR Coordinator at Coventry High School, 1 year with 1-year renewable effective with the 2019-2020 school year.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Finally, Jason Murray, is there a
Madam
motion?
Chair, I'll
I'm
have to
sorry.
recuse myself from this
Oh,
vote.
yeah, I guess you would.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Jason Murray, 1.0, Dean of Students at Coventry High School, effective 2019-2020 school year.
Second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 4 with 1 recusal. Moving, I'm sorry. Is he here, Jason? I'm sorry, I didn't ask if any of these people were here. If any of those that we did appoint tonight are here, if you could stand and we'll congratulate you. Congratulations. Thank you. I didn't even see him back there. All right. Did you want to say anything, Jason? No, just glad to be part of the team. Cool. All right, thank you. All right. So that's the end of the business agenda. We're going to move into the public agenda, which means that any of the items on our agenda, remaining items, are open to the public. If a motion is made by the school committee, we will go back out to the public and ask for any comments before any vote is actually called for and taken. That being said, if we could move on to number 7, which is the discussion and approval of the field trip to Washington DC. Mr. Levis, did you want to?
Sure, just, I wasn't sure, I had spoken briefly to Mr. Anderson about this a while ago, when it was brought to my attention. Last year, we didn't, because it's outside of the school time.
Yeah.
But my concern was because the funds went through the restricted account, I believe. They received a grant or award, so I brought it before the school committee. They're actually leaving tomorrow. But this is something that they did last year. We had another group, I believe, from Western Coventry, who won this also, got this recognition. But there are several, as you see, their parents going with their children, and 2 teachers are going. So I thought better be safe than sorry. But again, because it's going, the funding was deposited into our student, or what do they call the building? Thank you. Brain's not working. Building restricted, that would bring it forward. But I want to congratulate them too, because this is, I believe, the 2nd year in a row that they did this.
Any questions for the superintendent before we move? Are we ready for a motion?
I actually had one question.
Okay.
The $1,500 grant that they got from National Grid, do you know how that was allocated?
I don't. I think it was distributed equitably amongst the offset amongst the students.
I know the registration was like $550 or between $500 and $700, so I'm
Right.
assuming it was just allocated that way.
Right.
Okay.
And I think, I don't know exactly how, but I know last year it was always,
Depending on room choice.
Yeah, that's the cost.
Okay.
and this is something that we'll have to think about. I mean, we decided, just so the public knows, there's guidance out of Department of Ed around field trips, and we decided that we were going to continue with our process this year, but something that we'll be looking at now to look at how we're going to, handle these type of field trips moving forward. So just to be clear about that. So I don't know where this would be, depending on where we fall next, in terms of what we decide. So,
I know what I want to decide.
pardon?
I said, I know what I want to decide.
Yeah, no, well, we may
that
all
in a
decide,
public
you may all decide that. I mean, right?
Yeah.
While we're on the topic, are we going to have that discussion coming meetings?
Yeah, once we're going to bring it to the policy subcommittee, so, and then it'll come here, obviously, yes.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Jason Murray, 1.0.
No.
I apologize, Madam Chair. I make a motion to approve a field trip for the Need Club to attend the Need Youth Energy Conference and Awards in Washington, D.C. from June 21st, 2019 to June 24th, 2019. And I apologize, Lou.
I second the motion.
Jason, you get 2 salaries.
Yeah, we were gonna point you twice, Jason. You can never have enough, right?
He was
Before,
joking.
before we vote, were there any questions from the public before we call for a vote? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to the discussion and approval of our 1920 school calendar, which was our reference number 4 in our packet. And Mr. Levis, did you want to explain that for us,
I'm going to
please?
ask Ms. McDonald if she doesn't mind to,
Ooh.
since she's the one that brought it to my attention, so.
We blew it, huh?
Okay, so the only change is the last day of school is now the 11th instead of the 10th, to make that the 180 days, and the last day will be a half day of school. And that's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions for Donna and/or anybody else? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the revised 2019-2020 school calendar as presented / amended.
I second the motion.
Before I call for the vote, are there any comments or questions from the citizens gathered? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to number 9, which is the discussion of the reductions based on approved budget, which was our reference number 5. Sarah?
So just before we get into this, I just wanted to make sure that we're all aware that this is still going to be a fluid process throughout the summer. So the recommendations that we're bringing forward right now are based on the facts that we have right now. So I want to keep in mind that you just approved several resignations. Had those people resigned when we originally requested back in February, we would have had a different number going forward because most of those carry higher salaries than the replacements that they had. So it's hard, we don't operate the same way that the town does, where it's a little bit easier to pinpoint expenditures down. There's a constant fluidity, especially during this time, but really even through when we get throughout the school year. So tomorrow we have job fair. We'll have a better idea of where the staffing is going to land and who's ultimately going to get recalled during that process. That will have an impact on the number that I have in there for unemployment. We still are looking at different sections within SRP and still going through all of that. We're still waiting on final counts from our out-of-district tuition, so I sent emails to all of the known schools that we have students out at to make sure that we have all applications on file, because it isn't unheard of to have a student attend when an application doesn't come through our office to get signed off on. So there's still a tremendous amount of work that is going to continue through the summer. We have to bring forward a balanced budget for you to vote on. We bring budgets back on almost a monthly basis, and even within that, there's transfers that the school departments or school buildings will do based on how they assess their needs. The line item cuts that I sent out to you, I also sent out to the principals. Remember, they did this budget back in like December. So, that's quite a bit of time ago, where they now need to go back and reevaluate to say, oh, you know what, I have this in supplies, I really need to move that to equipment. And the way that we break out the budget, we separate that. So there is a chance that even the recommended line item cuts from the non-personnel could change based on the principal's final review and what we ultimately decide to move forward. So the goal is to have a budget to begin with, which is why we have an original budget on our financial report and then an adjusted budget as we continue to move on. So we will continue to refine this over the summer, and have a baseline. I know there's a lot of questions about what clubs are being cut and whatnot, and we have an estimate in there for a total dollar amount, but even that will still depend upon a review of, what clubs would that actually mean? What can we do to have the least impact on the least number of enrolled students? If all of the people that we lay off get jobs right away and I don't have to do that unemployment bill that's in there, that could change the conversation right there. So I just want to make sure that we have a clear understanding that the budget that we're presenting right now still is subject to change, but we need an actual budget going forward for July 1st.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm going to ask the committee members one by one for any questions, starting with Mr. Florio.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Mr. Florio.
How are you?
I'm good.
How are you, Sarah?
I'm good. Thank you.
First question, the SRP, are they going to be recalled, or have they been laid off, or what's their
We lay 'em
status?
Mr. Levis.
No, I mean, so we brought forward based on the worst case scenario that was tabled. And we're going to wait and see based on our numbers that potentially there'll be some people that will bring forward, but I believe it'll probably be based on need. Most of our SRP, that we have our clerks, secretaries, we also have people in the maintenance facilities. I don't want to leave anybody out. We have people that are in administrative roles in central office, and then we have a lot of individuals that work with special ed. And one thing that I just want to state is that none of those positions around the special ed will be impacted whatsoever in terms of students having the support that they need or require. But we're going to look at all that and then come back. Before I do that, I'll meet with Linda Belmere and Tammy Anderson, the president, vice president. We'll discuss with them, and then we would come back before you. And I think I put that in an email to the committee saying that there's a lot of variables that we still need to look at. So that's the SRP piece.
Right.
Thank you.
So the most extensive review of the SRP that we've done is really surrounding special education, and that was really looking at the program. So we went school by school, looking to see, okay, at this point in time, we needed this number of SRP support personnel based on the students enrolled in the program. Some may have been switching up to middle school. We may have had high school kids that graduated that no longer needed a one-on-one. So it was any adjustments that we've talked about right now for SRP is really based on student need and making sure that we're fulfilling that.
Okay, I have one more question. Today I received an email from Tim Duffy. It said that the recommended change from 2019 to 2020 was $1,672,482. Is that what you anticipated?
Right, so on the budget, it's off about $7,000, and again, that hasn't been finalized. So Mr. Duffy does send out a lot of information, sometimes correct, sometimes incorrect. So I typically will look at his emails and say thank you, and then I wait until the Department of Ed comes out with something. So the increase in the state aid that I have is $1,660,901.
So it's kind of accurate.
It's pretty close.
Pretty close. Thank you. Thank you. Those were my two questions. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Murray?
Sarah, I talked to the superintendent a little bit today about this, but the state aid, when will we receive confirmation on what the final number? I'm assuming it's after the budget's approved by the state?
Correct, and then
So
the Department of
July
Ed
1st.
will really develop their schedules and send it out to all of the communities. So hopefully early July, but it kind of depends on when things flow through the state level.
Okay.
So
And
as of right now, this number is updated with our March 1st enrollment, with all of the state share ratio factors that have been presented. So I wouldn't anticipate significant changes unless there's a significant change in the state budget.
okay. Applications for tuition in and tuition out, are we still seeing trends? Have we had any? I know that we had seen a kind of a bump.
So we definitely had a bump. What I'm receiving now, I'll say I received one today from a parent that said that they're withdrawing their application for another community. So that's positive. And that's what we have to wait. Like I said, the Department of Ed says that parents can just go to another community and they don't need our approval. There's a form that had been created just as, I guess, as a courtesy, but, we don't know. Charter school students can go and just show up, and we find out usually when we get billed. So that's a big variable. So we talked about the state aid. We're hoping that it's consistent, but we've had surprises before, even when it's all been projected. But these tuitions are variable. Sarah had said, I believe in an email to the committee, that she's adjusted in the budget, some for tuitions, but we don't know what that bottom number will be. And it's approximately $14,000 or $15,000 a student. So right now, I'd say there's about, again, there are some that I believe are out there that we don't have information on, but I would say somewhere between, I know this is vague, but 14 to 20 of since the budget failed, 14 to 20 applications. Now I'm hoping, people have told me that some of those were safety nets for their children, because they were concerned, and so, but that's a big, 14 to 20. I mean, if you look at 15,000, that could be $300,000. Then you add transportation. That's why, there's not a lot of place for us to go in this budget and wiggle room. And you know, knowing that we brought up before about additional special ed requests that may be necessary. I think we talked about $169,000 of positions that students will need. So those are all things that we're thinking about. This was just to get us to what the town has approved in the all-day referendum. So that could come either way. If those tuitions go away because parents did it just as safety nets, and we actually see an increase, we did get an increase the other day. Ms. Ferguson sent me one, a community had been fighting about a child not coming here, and then they agreed to it. So we've seen, you know, I'm hoping that we see a shift the other way. So, but we don't know, and hopefully we'll have a better understanding by our July 11th meeting. But we'll know before, we'll have a better understanding at our next meeting. You know what I'm saying? This is going to be a fluid process.
And I guess the last thing is just because I know some parents are concerned about potential cuts, and I know that we can't weigh in on that right now because it's a fluid situation, but when is the point where we have some relative certainty? Because obviously we want to get everything in order before the start of the school year, but when do you feel that you'll have some sort of handle on the budget as a total package? You know, I mean, I know we said by next meeting we'll have a better idea, but
That's the truth.
You know,
I mean,
just
we'll
to
have a
provide
better
some-
idea.
to parents out there who are wondering, like, when am I gonna know?
Right, so a big factor is tomorrow's job fair, definitely, to see who ultimately remains on layoff. And then if I can reduce that unemployment down, we'll want to make sure we have the final state aid numbers. And then if I feel like there's cushion in that, we also have 2 kindergarten teachers that are part of our anticipated reduction to get to that 350. So depending on what enrollment comes in over the summer, if we need to pull one or both of those kindergarten teachers back, then that puts us in a different situation where we're looking for an additional $160,000 to cut out. So I would like to say, you know, by mid to end of July, assuming that there's no change on the kindergarten callback, assuming that we think we have all of our out-of-district tuitions covered, then we can kind of make some of those final decisions. To be honest with you, I will probably recommend going forward with a lot of these cuts regardless, because as we saw last year, we got hit early on with special ed and had to essentially freeze a lot of our initiatives right off the bat, and I don't want to continue doing that. So I hate to say that I would move forward with quote-unquote cushion, because I don't want to imply that any of those resources are not needed, but to give some wiggle room to make some cuts above and beyond what our bare minimum need is right now would be smart for this district to do, so that should a special ed issue come in, or should another out-of-district tuition come in, or should we lose career and tech students, because there is a lot of movement in the first quarter, that we can react to that better than what we have been able to do. So ultimately, I would probably recommend moving forward with the cuts that are recommended until we at least start the year. But I'll have a better handle on it by the end of July, where I think our potential wiggle room is.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Luke, for asking my question. But I'm going to expand on that a little bit. I did email both you and Mr. Levis, and my email has been inundated with the fact that they're cutting specific activities. So somebody knows something somewhere. I don't know where,
So,
but can I just
Yeah,
finish,
sure, of
please?
course.
Thank you. But I think my biggest thing is, I'm going to vote on something, a $40,000 cut to activities, and we don't know what's being cut. And to me, I mean, I don't vote on anything where I don't know what's happening. So I guess I'm trying to understand, how am I going to vote on this if I don't know what's being cut? You're just saying 40,000 across the board. That could be everything or anything. It could be just, you know, low-hanging fruit, or it could be, you know, like high school football. So,
Well, I think we did discuss that we weren't going towards athletics, so I don't think that it's
Well-
going to be the high school football. But what we had put out was that we were looking at reducing the number of clubs at the elementary level and at the middle school level in half. Which
okay,
is
so
how
what
I
type
came
of
up with that.
clubs? And I want to know, like, how much money is that going to save us? Because a lot of these clubs get booster money, and, you know, I mean, like, take, for instance, chorus. How much do you actually pay a teacher for chorus?
So what we're doing is we're taking out the stipended club
Okay.
positions in the contract. Again, that will ultimately go back to the school to say, you know, I really want to keep the drama club because it's hitting X number of kids that are not otherwise engaged in something else. I might not, and I'm throwing these out here, so please do not, you know, set this in stone. I'm not going to make that educational decision, but I might get rid of the garden club as an example. We have had boosters that have stepped in. I am waiting on legal opinion as to what degree we can allow that to continue on. But I have to go back. We made it crystal clear that the budget that we brought forward originally was the budget that was required in order to maintain all of our programs.
And I understand that,
So
and I
to
voted
cut
for that budget.
So to cut out 350,000, when really that number is a bigger nugget, when we look at all of the other factors, something has to get cut. And I think you have that line item detail in front of you to kind of go through some of those lines. I wish that I could sit here and give more specifics on the exact clubs. I don't know if Mr. Levis wants to
So,
weigh in on that.
Yeah, I just want to say that, first of all, you said why you're being inundated. I think somebody sent me a Facebook post that basically, I think, said to the community, all clubs were being cut, and what about the sports, right? So just, and this is my frustration, that this community thrives on divisiveness, and we need to be unifying people together. This has been a horrific time for many people. When I came on board, it was the ROTC, right, Dottie? The ROTC, but it was just the ROTC. And since I've been here, what I've begged people to do is let's support education as a whole, right? All of us, because people have their agendas, and put the agendas aside. I support music, I support drama, I support sports. I don't know how to engage the public 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We can't just engage people when there's a fire. But the point is that these are not all clubs. We met with our principals, and on the table for the middle school was we could look at athletics, we could look at some of the activities, right? On the table, there is no sports at the elementary school. The other thing is middle school and elementary students have opportunities that are low cost or no cost after school. If you want to play athletics or join a club or theater or drama at the secondary level, it's very, very expensive, right?
I understand that.
So what we've done is we with the passing of the 350, and this has been, we shared this information with the school committee before the FTM and with the public at the FTM. We've left it up to our principals because it's not an easy decision. So we're not trying to be vague, but we don't know because it's not an easy decision.
Just, for all intents and purposes, and all due respect, I feel that by cutting drama and those things, that's an easy decision for people because there aren't a lot of kids that do that. There's more kids doing sports. And I was under the impression that everything was cut equally, that it wasn't going to be just this section and not this. And number three, I'm not at my own agenda here. I am elected by the people to fight for the people. I work for them as you work for us. Right.
So my thing, Donna, is that when we got cut the first time, $100,000, we cut the $100,000 through items throughout the budget. When we would cut $350,000, and with all the television stations and news reporters, we were clear that even if this budget passed, there's still going to be cuts that were made. And those, we discussed those different areas, middle school, elementary school. So we don't know. I wish I could tell you. And as Sarah said, this could all change. But the fact that, we have 15 teachers that are laid off, right? We have that just this time. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 teachers that are still on layoff. That's 28 individuals, right? So my feeling is when people say about impacting kids, I believe these kindergarten teachers we talked about tonight, right? Whether we call them back or not, I know that kindergarten teachers from Coventry are in high demand, right? We not only do we train them, we've been this Boston pilot. These kids are going to be gone. These teachers will be gone, most likely, and we've invested in them. They've invested in our community. So I'm saying none of these are easy decisions to make. Like, these are not easy.
I don't feel, and that's why, and I didn't respond to your email, but, I am making tough decisions too. I can make the easy decision and support the superintendent, or I can make a tough decision and support my constituents. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm just bringing to you what my constituents brought to me.
I understand it, but I just want you to know, and it's not about me, because I really don't care, like I've said, and I get in trouble for saying, you know, I'm gonna do the right thing. I don't owe anybody anything but respect. That's how I look at it, you know?
That's
And there are
right.
people that know I don't play a political game. But the insinuation that every single day, the administrative team, our teachers, because they're part of this too, we haven't blindsided anybody with this. We were clear about it. I cannot, and I have to work, and Mr. Murray and I talked about this today, I have to figure out how do I engage people 24/7, because I haven't been able to do that, right? But I don't think anybody has, and we've seen that in this community. But the fact is that we make tough decisions every single day, and we bring them forward to you. And if I can't give you an answer, I tell you I can't give you an answer.
And I appreciate that. And I'm not trying to, you know, downplay anything. And I realize that you do. And you did a great job with the budget. And like I said, I supported the original budget and I supported the last budget. And I got enough people out there to support that budget. And Kelly helped the second time getting more people out there. So, you know, these are the people that came to me, are the people that supported our budget. And I think, and that's just why.
I had an email, just to say, I had an email from a parent that you know, not to be nameless, but they have 3 children in schools, and they said to me that they didn't support the first time, and they want to support the second time because of there wouldn't be cuts. But we were clear the second time that budget, there were going to be cuts. That's all I'm saying is that.
And they supported that. That's what I mean.
But if they supported
had
the
no
first time,
idea.
we wouldn't be here, though.
And you know, that's just it. It's like, nobody really understood just what was on the chopping block. And even afterwards, even after they sat there and they said, well, gee, you know, it's just scare tactics.
But it isn't, and
No,
this is
I
reality.
understand that. But I'm just saying, and I know you got an email from that one parent, but I got emails from people, my neighbors, that did support the budget twice. And I have to bring this forward.
And I appreciate you bringing it forward, but I feel like, you know, we're not saying this is definite, right? That's the out here. But we have to balance the budget legally. And we've been clear all along that there were going to be cuts. And you know, somebody said to me today, like, was this going to be year after year after year? I think you were on that email too. And it's like, you know, I didn't want to go that route. I said, we have to engage people all the time to talk about this. I need people to understand the educational process. I need them to respect what the educators do day in and day out and acknowledge what they do, but also understand the budget process and work with us. And I've had lots of conversations with people here about how do you do that? And I'll be the first to admit, I have an idea, I try it, but it doesn't always work. Then I have a lot of people say, well, let's do this and let's try this, you know, and you know, I definitely need to figure out how do we get people the right information, because a lot of people are reacting to a Facebook post.
And that's just it. And so I'm reacting to what my constituents are reacting to. And that's why I wanted to know what the $40,000. I mean, obviously someone's got some ideas. There's going to be clubs, and you're saying it's going to be the least impactful, you know, but that drama club that maybe only has 5 or 6 kids or has 20 kids, or it may be less impactful than, you know, lacrosse, but those 20 kids probably, that's their life, you know?
Can I weigh in?
But we're still talking elementary and from the
And
middle
middle
school.
school, and-
So there's no lacrosse at the elementary.
Well,
So
I'm
I know you threw it out.
using
But
just
what I do think that me personally, I know there has to be cuts because the budget was cut
And I
350.
understand that.
I get that. We are not voting on this tonight, so we have still some
Okay.
time. I'm very hopeful that Sarah's going to come back, but there's no guarantee that on the meeting on the 11th, she could have even more cuts. We have no idea.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. We're voting on the budget.
Yes.
The budget is the budget. That's a number.
So we're voting on these cuts. You can't say we're not voting on these
just-
cuts.
but she
These are the
just-
cuts that, stop, I'm sorry, excuse me.
All right,
Sorry to
okay.
direct the chair. Excuse me.
No,
Mr.
that's
Chair.
okay.
These are the cuts that are being presented to us that we're voting on tonight. You cannot say that these aren't the cuts. These are the cuts. You can't say that these aren't definite. These are definite until we re-vote on a different budget and cutting from somewhere else. This is it.
That
You
is
can't say
correct.
these are not the
But,
cuts.
but
These are the
in
cuts.
discussion I had today, right, just to reiterate my conversation with you, is that some of these decisions are going to be done at the building level as far as
So-
potential
so-
cuts.
Right, so let me, we've been clear.
Decisions are done here.
No, they're not,
No,
because
the
this is a,
recommendations are done at the building level. The superintendent approves the recommendations. It's our job for oversight and guidance over the budget. We are ultimately responsible for the
but there's
budget.
40,000
The
that was put on
legislation
the,
hasn't passed. I'm not done. Legislation hasn't passed yet to push all that power down to the building level yet. It's coming, but still, the superintendent and the school committee has oversight over the budget. It's our job. Stop deferring. If we're cutting this, you're responsible. It's on us.
and it was a $40,000 cut that was clarified before we, you know, it was at the FTM.
This is the first
we were
time
all
we're
there.
discussing this. The FTM was not a school committee discussion on the budget. This is the first time these cuts were presented to us in a forum we're able to deliberate.
I'll give you that. But
Good.
these were not
deliberate.
hidden cuts. I don't know if anybody didn't communicate with the administration on this, but we've had time. I reached out to Mr. Levis multiple times on this and was explained that we were going to look at building level cuts after this was done, and it was a fluid situation, that if we get money back, we already said we would be voting on additional budgets.
Right.
So, I think to say this draconian, like the sky is falling, listen, everyone needs to feel the pain. I think we need a dean at the middle school.
I do too.
But,
So-
but we haven't talked about that yet. So, but, the truth is that everything is sort of on the table.
So
but-
we, just so you know, we've left this, so we've voted on budgets before, and we make line item changes when we come back to the committee, and depending on the way this is here, we know, and I'm gonna be adamant, we know that we need those supervisory assistants, we said that. But because it wasn't impacting a body, right, we took them off. We said the same thing with the dean. We said to our administrators, if you choose to identify other areas you can cut, then we'll come back before the committee to get those supervisory assistants on. So we have to balance the budget, right? And that's what we're doing. But these are all fluid because we need many of these. The kindergarten teachers, Sarah just said, if our enrollment goes up, we're gonna go back.
Right. Can I just clarify too?
And I asked, and also too, it's just, from a committee perspective, Mr. Pearson, I've reached out and I've asked people to communicate with me and discuss things with me, right? Because I don't want to blindside anybody. And in fairness, that isn't always reciprocated, and we can always go in the public. I always bring things forward to the public. If anybody asks me, I bring it to the committee. Because I'm gonna make sure that the committee as an entity has a right to discuss. And that's why I put this on tonight.
Can I just clarify too? If you read the motion in your packet,
Yes.
it is a bottom line budget that you're voting on with an amount coming from local appropriations. So while this budget scenario was not something that any of us wanted to go to, this specific process is no different than any other years past. So at this time, you are always approving a budget for the next fiscal year before that fiscal year starts. Every time I bring back a budget that has appropriation transfers in accordance with the policy, you're almost reaffirming that what I'm presenting is our financial snapshot at that time. So the fluidity that we are experiencing is no different than previous years. Unfortunately, we had to make reductions. But the motion that is in your packet is a bottom line
just the
budget with
bottom
amount coming from local appropriations. Should the governor decide to add $2 million to us,
We'll take it.
we're gonna be coming back and going back through that process again and re-adopting a new bottom line budget at that point. Same if tuition income starts coming in higher or lower, you will see that on your monthly financial statements where you will be re-approving my finance director's report. So this is not a snapshot in time, and I want to be clear, the town made it clear that if the referendum failed, the next day they would be dismantling Parks and Rec.
Right.
We are not standing here before you saying, if you don't vote this, we are dismantling, X, or if you do vote on this, we are dismantling all of those clubs. This is our best case scenario at this time. It's a bottom line budget that you're voting on right now so that we have a valid budget to start the fiscal year that will continue to change as it has every other fiscal year.
Can I just ask a question? If, in fact, all right, so we vote on the bottom line budget, but can we get a say, like when you decide to cut those clubs, can you bring that back to the committee, or is that done? Is it done?
No, we can definitely bring back to the committee. And just,
That's all I'm asking.
right, but
I
we-
just,
I guess I just want to say, that we've been through, when we went through the budget, right? We've gone through the budget line item by line item. And and I don't know how this is going to come out, but I'm going to throw it out there anyways. But no, but I mean, my assumption is that, and I'll use Mr. Murray as an example. Mr. Murray came on late in the process, but went through and sat here, and again, I'm paraphrasing, but said, you went through it and you didn't see any areas based on, your best ability where there was any fluff or things that we didn't need in the budget. And I assume as all the public sessions and every time we come forward with the committee, that if you felt there were things in there that we didn't need. And so that's why this process, it's painful, because we're reducing, we believe, we've cut areas where we're taking a really low, even though Sarah's very conservative, we're playing like Russian roulette in certain areas. We've made cuts and we're just gonna hope that they come in our favor. So that's the point, is that there's no easy, everything we do right now, I believe, is, as superintendent, is gonna have an impact on students. And that's the bottom line. And that, so one thing in fairness to Mr. Pearson, he's asked me several times to bring forward options, right? I feel as the educational leader and with the leadership team here, our job is to bring to you what our best thinking is. At the end of the day, you can say to me, you're not gonna do this. But what I don't want to, and with all due respect to everybody here, and I'm not saying anybody plays the political, I don't want it. I've been in districts, I've seen districts where people come, when we went through line item by line item, that's the place I felt like if you, to have some discussions about things that you just felt were not necessary. Now, I don't want to say we're in survival mode. There's a silver lining. Tonight's supposed to be a real positive meeting because we're able to bring back 360.
And it is,
right.
It's wonderful. I'm thrilled. I'm just afraid that we're gonna cut something that's maybe only $1,500 here or $300 here.
Right.
And it's gonna impact kids that really don't,
Right. And that,
this is what they like to do. And, the elementary and the middle school is where you wanna catch them. By the time they hit high school, sometimes it's too late.
Right. I agree. I mean, I don't want to sit here and go through this. I don't want to sit here, and we work really well together. And I don't always agree with people. I don't, and I said that today with somebody.
Disagree.
I don't want to have arguments. I mean, we deal with our stuff, I think, a lot behind the scenes, and we promote a real positive. And I don't want to promote negative. My point is that we wouldn't be even talking about this if we weren't concerned about all these other variables we have. Because I'm concerned we're going to have to come back with you, even though I've said in emails to people, the scenarios could change either way. So I'm going to focus on, let's hope they change for the positive. But if they don't, what if we have 15 additional out-of-district tuitions? We're going to have to cut, and it's going to impact, everything we do from this point on is going to impact students. I mean, not having this dean position at the middle school, we had some people were here. We had a forum at the middle school. We had about 57, 60 individuals come on safety and talk about different things. And Mr. Lucian helped facilitate it. I helped facilitate it. We had Officer Pacheco, Captain Skorsky, and we had a lot of good feedback, but part of it is looking at, same with the supervisory assistants. They're crucial in what we feel moving forward, and we've put them on the table here. So I mean, we may have to make some more difficult decisions, and I just want the community, I don't want to blindside anybody. This is reality. This is not crying wolf. If we don't have to do this, this would be great. I don't want to sit here and when I read some of these things that people send me, and it's like, how can you do this and how can you do that? Or, I have people tell me, we voted. I thought there were going to be no cuts, when we were clear that there's still going to be cuts. But what do you say to some person that obviously either didn't listen, didn't understand? It's tough.
I got that email too, and I got
Right.
the response. And,
Right, but I mean, you try to be fair,
have
but
to
I'm
cut
saying is, I don't know where, if we don't have to do any of these, if we can change, like I said, to me, the big thing right now is knowing that we're probably going to lose kindergarten teachers that are phenomenal, that we've trained, and maybe your children have been through it. But what about those kids who are supposed to get them next year? I mean, this is our reality when I look at this. So everything's painful right now. So I get it. I don't want to sit here and have this discussion, debate about it. But we wouldn't if we felt that it wasn't important to put it on the table.
And the only thing I'm asking is that before you actually make those cuts, if you could just bring it to the committee.
Right.
Just so we can have a say in some of that. I think that was more what I was talking about. That's why I asked for, what's being cut in the $40,000?
Sure.
Because it's like to vote on something and not really know, and then all of a sudden you find out this was cut, and you're like, oh gee, I could have fought for that. Or
Right, and that's why those for discussion, and again, Mr. Pearson may, you know a lot more about procedures and things than I do, but my understanding with this process was we're only voting on,
Bottom line.
we're voting on the bottom line.
I'll
That-
let my turn. Donna has the floor. So
What's that?
you have the floor still, so I'll wait
No,
my
no,
turn
go
before I
ahead.
ask my question.
It's your turn. Go ahead.
Um,
I'm done. Thank you. I appreciate.
This is the bottom line budget. Are the changes we're voting on in here?
These changes
Are they in here? The line item.
salary,
Are they in the line item budget that we have?
and I have a bulk number here, so you will not see a garden club stipend with a reduction. You will not see a drama club line item with a reduction. It's in a summary of an estimate.
So it's in
Same
the
with
salary
kindergarten
reduction.
Teachers, because a lot of times if they have a different certification, it might not be that person that gets bumped.
So there is a salary line item reduction that we're voting on tonight. And the $40,000 in clubs for middle school and elementary school are included in that salary line item reduction. Sorry for getting so heated earlier.
That's okay.
Me too.
It's tough.
Because we're in a spot, we have to reduce the budget, and we have to take things away from the district, and we have to take things away from students and teachers and families, and it's never a pleasant task. So again, I take my role as having that oversight power and authority very seriously, and when we're cutting. We're targeting middle and elementary school, and I understand some of the justification. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. I don't want to blindside you. Every dollar counts here, so I just take it very seriously. That's why I'm so impassioned. So every dollar counts. So is my mic on? Good. We should also, at some point, be having discussions about revenue. And I know we have very limited ability to raise any significant amounts of revenue, but every dollar counts. So things like pre-K tuition and facility use fees have to get back on the table at some point. And I'm not saying we're going to balloon those fees to try and compensate for something, but we haven't examined those in a bit. And it's time to look at that. Any other revenue options we have any control over, we should also be examining to find ways to make more money and offset some of these cuts. I think that's my point. And I know we keep saying we're voting on a bottom line budget. I don't know if I agree with that. We can say it all we want, but the fact is we're reducing the salary line item. So these cuts are on the table. That's all I have.
Kathy, can I move back in real quick? Because I think it's important that parents out there understand this, right? We're planning for the worst, we're hoping for the best, right? To summarize.
Correct.
So this is not a thing tonight that is going to be decided. It's still a fluid situation. We're hoping that they'll come back, but we've got to be honest with them that more cuts may come, correct?
Correct, and just to clarify, last year you voted on a budget that had a reduction of kindergarten teachers, and we had to recall them both back subsequent to the vote. So, again, this process hurts because of the amount of a reduction we had to do, but the process itself is no different than anything else. And I just, again, Mr. Pearson, I do just have to push back a little bit, and Mrs. Colonian, about how none of the, how any of these cuts are easy, because they're not. And so to say take it personally, again, I have a child that's going into kindergarten who needs a kindergarten assistant in that classroom. And that was absolutely something that was discussed should this budget fail. So to say that it's just the committee that's taking it personally is not accurate, and it is a hard position
say
to
that.
be
I
here
never
to
said that
make
at
those
all.
No,
recommendations.
we didn't
So
say
I
that.
just wanna make sure that's
We
clear.
said it's personally a hard decision. I didn't say it's only the school committee taking it as a personal hard decision.
No, because
There's a
the
big
entire
difference.
community is taking.
I know it's very difficult for everyone sitting up here. I know it's very difficult for you. I know it's very difficult for a lot of people in the audience.
Yeah, I mean, I can empathize. I have a
Completely.
middle schooler going to middle school this year. So I may have to cut the very club that she really wants. But I will do it because it's a value judgment. When the community said we needed to tighten our belts and reduce the budget, this was the decision they made, not this committee. We presented, as you had said all along, what we thought was a fair budget, an honest budget. And so this is the implication of that, and we will do the cuts that need to be happened. But they have to, I agree, they have to be across the board, because we all have different values here. And I think we need to, as the superintendent, we talked today, he said that he would go, not only push these down to the building level, but he had offered for the PTAs, PTOs to meet with them and get their value judgments on this. So this isn't going to be a closed process. I want people to understand that in the discussions that I've had with the administration, that they want to be inclusive on these cuts. But we got to make people realistic that some pain needs to be shared if this comes down. So, be prepared and don't be surprised.
I just want to reiterate what Mr. Murray just said. But I spoke to Mr. Levis, and we've been speaking regularly about this. And I have to commend you, I have to commend the administration for the work that you've put in every day to get this done. And Mr. Levis is going to meet with, he told me today, with the PTA and PTOs, like Mr. Murray said. He's been meeting with the Coventry Teacher Alliance to get buy-in from them. He's been, and so have you, you've been working together as a team to try to get this together with our teachers and with our SRP. And I, as a school committee member, and I think we all appreciate the hard work and labor that you guys put in. And it's fluid. It is fluid, and we're not going to know anything about anything until we haven't even gotten the numbers back from the state yet. We don't even know. We don't even know what the state's going to give us. We're doing the best we can, and I think the public should know that. We're working every day. Every member of this committee's working every day to try to make this as easy a transition as possible and as transparent as possible, which has never been done before. We've never been in this situation. And I commend everyone, because I think we're all trying to do the best we can to help the town. So that's all I have to say, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. My first comment is that sometimes I regret giving everybody else the floor before I get the floor. That being said, I came to this meeting thinking that it was the bottom line. I've been on this committee for 16 years, and after the town financial meeting and the vote is taken, there's a bottom line. We have to accept it. Sometimes it's been a good acceptance. Sometimes it's been very painful. Most times it's been very painful. The exact cuts sometimes are there, sometimes they're not. So I was not really thinking that the cuts that were presented, the 390 or whatever it is, were things we had to vote on tonight. It wasn't a vote on our agenda. After your explanation, Sarah, and follow up with Mr. Levis, I was under the impression that we still don't know. And I'm hopeful that we can bring as much as possible back. But obviously, if we have to bring a teacher back because of enrollments, then something else has to be on the table. And so if that means clubs, it's not all clubs. It's not all clubs. I don't want to cut clubs. I don't want to cut anything. But the second referendum cut us by 350,000 or whatever, and we had a 100,000 cut at the first one. Never mind the second. I'm grateful beyond words that this community came together and saw fit to at least vote on the second referendum. I thank everyone for their hard work. I regret that I was not here, that I had planned a vacation, but I am so grateful for all of the people that came out and worked so hard to get that budget passed. The fact that it passed doesn't mean that we can just say, hallelujah, we don't have to cut anything. Obviously, because there were cuts on the table. We have to accept the bottom line per law. What I do believe and feel trust in is that the central office team, the administration, I trust you. I trust that you're going to bring this back to principals. Again, I trust the fact that you're not going to have to freeze the budget, hopefully, October 1st, because we have to bring even more teachers back. So that happened last year, which meant all kinds of things didn't get bought. All kinds of, LCDs and all kinds of equipment for classrooms, except if you said okay. So we have tried to make this more building-based. You have certainly tried to get all of our principals involved with that, to develop their own budgets and feel control, not feel that it was all top-down from central administration. What I do believe our principals will do on the clubs, if in fact that has to happen, we won't know for probably till next meeting, that they will pick the ones that have the least impact. No one's going to be happy. No one's going to be happy. How could you be? Maybe some groups will rally, some PTAs or PTOs will rally and somehow try to figure out how they can make this work so that our kids do have an experience on the elementary and at the middle school. I will say, from my perspective as a parent who had a child coming up through this system, not all parents can allow their children to do those after-school activities on the elementary level or at the middle school because our children are young. I didn't get back into this town until 6 o'clock every night. So my kid had to go to daycare. She couldn't go and do all the clubs on the elementary level or even at the middle school. She had to catch her bus and go to her daycare because I worked. And I suspect there are a lot of parents in this town whose kids are in that position. So it's not equal. It's not, everyone cannot avail themselves to afternoon activities after school, quite frankly. So if we have to put our money to educate our kids, I'd much rather put the money there. As unfortunate as that sounds, it's not equal. You ask parents out there, all parents can't pick up their kids, at 3-something. The buses are gone. So, I'm upset about the clubs, and I hope that we don't have to cancel them, and we have half of them at least. I'm hopeful the principals will be able to figure out which ones they should cut and which ones they shouldn't. But I also know that not all our children can avail themselves of it anyway, quite frankly. And it's a lot of times parents who are not working full-time or they work close by, that they can pick their kids up at a different time than the actual dismissal time. And there were times for my child that I had to ask other parents who were stay-at-home moms to allow my kid to do an after-school program. So it's very difficult anyway. But that's beside the point. But that's kind of how I feel about reductions on the clubs. Like, I feel badly about it, but I don't feel that it's like the end of the world. Last but not least, I'm going to put the trust in the people who basically give us advice on these things. And I will trust the principals. I will trust our central administration to try to do the best they can, with the knowledge also that we could get further cuts. And I understand why you put those on the table, just so that we might have to use them. Hopefully we will get some bonus, some revenue, some kids that are coming to our, our schools or whatever. I'm just gonna hope for the best. And that's really all I want to say about that. Any other questions before I bring that out to the public?
I actually have one brief question, all right, because it's come up in the emails. Can we get clarification? I know you mentioned this already, but getting clarification from our attorney on booster clubs, PTOs, PTAs, funding those programs, because that was a big question that came up. A few of the people who emailed me said, hey, look, we know there's cuts, but why can't we have the ability to fund these ourselves at the building level? So,
So
you don't have to weigh in now, but I'm just asking for.
I'll get something in writing from Ms. Anderson. I had a brief conversation, but the issue is that these are positions, these are positions that, the stipend position. So what the PTO could not do is they could not just run the clubs without the staff. So it would be, right. So it would be, like we've had coaches positions that have been funded and we brought them on for Title IX. The issue will come down to, so I have to see, could they fund the stipends, right? Because we can't take that away from our educators. But then it's got to be equitable. That's the piece, is that what if one school could fund something and another school couldn't? And that's where, it's just like with booster clubs, what I don't think, I always say this, we need the support from PTAs and PTOs. Like, I'm a broken record. We need all their support. And all the things that we've done, I know about communication and flyers and all that stuff. the perception is that we don't care and we don't need them. Well, we definitely do. You know, we need you more than ever in booster clubs. But there's Title IX. We had a little training today where if a booster club, say a booster club funded the entire football program, and we'd say, oh, that's great. Well, not, we've got to make sure we fund an equal amount to somebody else. Like so there's things that we have to take in consideration. So I'm not trying to be vague. Like I said, and I think we had a conversation today, it's that we don't know all the details because I don't even know what the club's going to be. And the middle school could turn around and say, hey, there's a sports thing that we're going to get rid of. And we look at how do we deal with that in terms of Title IX? So, there's things that we have to look at. So again, I said I would meet with the PTAs and PTOs because I know they have a lot of questions and I know they want to be helpful. So I said I will reach out Monday and reach out to them and call and pull them together and hopefully I have better information because I don't want to sit there and just listen to them and not have something to share with them because I know they want to help out, but they do help out. They help out with so much. Because don't forget, we don't just run the clubs. There's a lot of other programs that the PTA runs, PTOs run outside of school and for families and things like that that we couldn't even begin to do. So
I think their biggest share is the,
yeah,
Excuse me, weren't we allowed to do that for certain sports?
there was something passed, there was, back when we were trying to figure out if, there was a,
Girls hockey, I think.
yeah,
Yeah,
that
lacrosse.
people
Thank
could
you,
donate
yes.
like 15,000 to a program or whatever. It is allowed by state law, I believe. I mean, I think the problem for PTAs and PTOs are, the employment taxes, they're not an entity that can hire or whatever. So the money still has to come flowing through because you have to pay the teacher yourself. PTA
Right.
can't do that. And do a whatever that is, that 190, the 99, or whatever thing that is. Yeah, yeah, I forget what that is. So. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So like PTAs can raise money for like supplies for a club. They can't really pay the stipend. They're not even really pretty much
So
allowed to.
say like
anyway.
the drama club, say they put on a play and they charge for it.
Yeah, that all
to
can come back that can all offset, yes. And that's a building level kind of thing.
Okay.
If they know that they're gonna get revenue, because I know Western has a huge drama.
Yeah.
But they charge for tickets and whatever, and I suspect that that's revenue that comes back into the program. Any parent, I've donated to their drama program. You can donate just because you want to. And that can all help, but it still has to go in through the principal, whatever the fund is. Restricted, yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. From the restricted.
So basically, that's what it is. Is the stipend, the actual stipend that they get, sort of like when, the safety patrol gets so much to run that program.
So when we get to the point where we're making those decisions, we will have to review all of the activity that PTOs or outside organizations may come forward with offers of help. Because I'm the district Title IX coordinator, and I have to ensure that there is equity amongst, even if they decided to buy supplies for one particular team or group, I have to be sure that there's an equitable distribution for another entity, so that there's no discrimination whatsoever. So we'll have to look at that. We'll get guidance from John first, and then take a look at making sure that we don't make any recommendations to you for cuts that would cause a Title IX violation in any way.
Right, and I understood that too. That's why I know that it wasn't cut so much in the high school level because of that. So, but, and again, I thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm sorry if I got a little heated, but.
Hey, we all
But
are.
Craig,
I mean,
you
this
know
isn't
me,
easy. This is not easy. Okay,
Melissa.
I
And
think,
Thank you, Sarah.
thank you. Are we done on this side? Because I can throw it out to the public now. Are we good? All right, are there any questions or comments from the public? Yes.
Hi, Kelly Renakis, 9 Sugar Maple Drive. Before we have the full discussion, I just want everyone to see the larger picture. I think a lot of the heatedness today was because of the inaccurate information on Facebook. I always choose to never respond. I like my interactions face to face. Yeah,
didn't get
but
any
I think all that started with the inaccurate information. So I think a lot of people came here this evening thinking that everything at the elementary and middle school is going to be eliminated. In fact, there could be anywhere between 3 and 5 and 6 clubs at elementaries, whether you look at yearbook, whether you look at a play, whether you look at safety patrol. There's many things that happen within the school, and it's a small club or a large club. And I think by saying everything was being eliminated, I think what I've heard here tonight for clarification is that whether there be 3, 4, 5, 6 clubs, you're looking at eliminating maybe 1 or 2, and kids can still go into the other 3. That's huge. That made me feel a little better because I have 2 kids in the system. Secondly, as an educator, I know people think when I get up here and speak, it's about me protecting the teachers. It's my job. I do it pretty well, but that's not what it's about because my contract's done. What I need you to remember is you cut 21 bodies out of the high school last year. And you talk about you don't want to impact kids. I can't tell you how many of my students could not get the courses they need for college, for their transcript, because we had to cut so many courses. You're cutting tonight another 16 bodies, and everybody's really hopeful for the job fair. Don't be. 2 of those are going to come back. Like, I've already done my numbers in the math, and I know who's certified for what. The problem with that is that impacts kids. And it's very frustrating as an educator, not a union leader, not as a parent. As an educator, when the public says, oh, that's great, you want this, but you're only 17th in the country, 17th in the state. You can't progress when you keep cutting. So you try to raise the rigor and standards for kids, but yet you cut AP classes. You try to meet the students for where they are, but you condense our special education classes with more kids in them. And it's not your fault because you have to meet the budget. But I guess as an educator, it gets frustrating. I don't want, again, now parent, 2 kids in the system, I don't want to see clubs and activities go either. Educator, I don't want to see the rigor of our instruction go because we're trying to raise the bar and do better for our kids, our families, and our community. And I just don't want the 2 sides pitted against one another. Academically, we did harm to our schools last year. $1.4 million. Not your fault, you had to make the cut. But I need you to sit there and realize you did academic harm to the district last year, to our kids, at all levels. And, you know, and it said, if the enrollment. So right now, you have jam-packed all your kindergarten classes, your first grade classes, your second grade classes. I teach high school. I don't teach that grade level for multitudes of reasons. My personality is not suited for kindergarten if you haven't met me. And the job is insane. You have kids that come to you at so many different levels. How many kids know their entire alphabet can count to 100 and can begin to read, and the child that can't count to 3? But we should put more kids in there because that's going to help them. So I just want you to offset everything you've had to do, not that anybody's wanted to, but you've done some major academic harm. You may have to do some club and or sport harm. I think the bigger picture is, maybe as Mr. Levis said, not the divisiveness, but look at our whole school as a culture. What does your child need from the moment they enter the building to the moment they leave? And that is, they need it all. They need a competent teacher. They need rigorous coursework. They need supports if they're trailing in something. They need to do something after school so they're out of trouble. But I just wish as a community we would look at that entire school day for students and look at how many places we've already had to harm. And that's it. I just want you to see the whole community. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Please state your name and address, please.
Karen DeLone, 20 Regalwood Drive. So I've got just a couple of statements. One, in the clubs and elementary school, middle, whatever. A couple of you made this statement where there's clubs and then there's academics and they don't go together. They most definitely go together. There are, and you said there's maybe 5 or 6 in the drama. There's at least 100 in the middle school in drama, if not more, and there's at least 110 in the band. That's 200 students. Some of those drama students would be in truancy problems if it wasn't for drama club and wasn't for Miss LeBron. Their grades have to be up. I'm sorry for them. I had oral surgery yesterday, but I needed to be here for this. Their grades are up because if they're not in the club. It very much goes hand in hand. I know it's a difficult situation, but they're not just doing it for fun. That's their life. If that's not there, they're not going to school. The kids in band, some of them are the same way. Jazz band, they live for that. They had a fantastic trip to Massachusetts, and they got the gold award. 4 points away from the highest award with Massachusetts in a Massachusetts high school. It's not just for fun. Do they do it for fun? Absolutely. They have a great time. They have a great band program.
But that's, I don't, just to make a comment, that's not a club. So that will stand. Jazz band and chorus and
But Miss St. Jean, Miss St. Martin, they all work together.
the drama club.
Yeah, but it's a whole group. And kind of to go to your comment that how do I get a community together 24/7? I fought like hell for 2 weeks with Kelly. I got followed, harassed, beat up. I stayed with it. At one point, I was accused I was the one in charge of all the signs. It was crazy. The people out there are a little wacko. But
Don't we know it?
I'd do it again if I had to.
Of course, yeah.
But I know the town is doing subcommittees. Are you guys doing subcommittees? Because there was minimal information being brought out. A lot of it was misunderstood. And then all of a sudden it was flood of information in 2 weeks to disseminate it. And people, some of them just don't have the understanding. So maybe a subcommittee or 2 subcommittees would help. And I'd be the first to volunteer.
Thank you.
That's what,
Did you want us to respond?
that's what I.
Do you want to talk to?
I'll just say that I appreciate your support. Like I said, I didn't say that. The change that happened in this community. And I'll say it publicly. I know Mrs. Aronakis was a big part of it, but she started, but it spread through so many different sectors of the community. So I appreciate that. And I'm open to any ideas. Just from a school position, I do believe at least you're involved in the schools. We shared information. We tried not to be doom and gloom. There's a lot of negativity out there on social media. I think after that grassroots organization started to come together, people started going into those different social media sites and positive. But until then, it was just spiraling. I know we're open. I've had conversations with different school committee members about different things that we can do, different community members. I know Dottie and I meet regularly, and she's always, I don't say forcing ideas down me, but she's very supportive with ideas. For us, it's just, we definitely have to do something differently, right? But it's going to take, it can't be just a small group of people. It's going to take engagement of many community members. So any ideas you have, more than willing, we're all more than willing to listen to and implement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
I'll add to that. Since you're very willing to participate in subcommittees, before you leave tonight, please give your info to Ms. McDonald and whatever we've got. I know we need more people on policy, but
Yeah.
you ever set up a finance or a budget
Yeah,
subcommittee?
we have, yeah.
More
And
people
I've thrown out there
involved, the
too,
better.
is, I think there's a discussion probably for another meeting specifically on subcommittees, but
Sure.
I think there's a realization that we need to reach out better. That I think having community advocates, seeing what we're dealing with, because you saw tonight on the Title IX issues, right? What seems to be a relatively easy issue, and I'm learning a lot myself, I'm fairly new here. But as the information comes, it's never this plus this equals this. There's some weird equation on how you get there, because everything with schools is a mandate or some hurdle or something. And I think the more that we educate the individual community on those hurdles that we deal with, and maybe get creative on how to deal with those, and when we get the budget season, they're out there as our advocates And I say advocates in the sense of educators, because we're not really trying to sell things. We're trying to educate people so they're more knowledgeable on the budget. And it's not this thing we just dealt with, which is oversimplification of very complex matters. So I appreciate the feedback and urge you to email your district rep member, and any subcommittees you think would be valuable. We're all ears.
Any other comments or concerns from the public?
Hi, Rick Colunian, 607 Black Rock Road. Just a couple of observations or comments. The first is that I think all of the clubs and extracurricular activities, when they're not mandatory, actually engage the student and their families and the community. And I think that is essential, and that's kind of been the theme, I think, at least for the past few years, and I think we need to keep that moving. As far as the referendum that just passed, and it's unfortunate that no one came to the budget hearings, and it was too late after the first vote, and then all of a sudden, there was a lot of momentum. And I think the momentum came from the parents that wanted to see the schools funded and the programs funded. And I realize that you guys are faced with $350,000, and what I'm hearing tonight is we need to share the pain. I'm a state worker, you know that. We've had to share the pain sometimes. I can go back to 1991, 2010, 2011. And I'm just throwing the idea out there. I don't want to be the skunk at the lawn party. The teachers have to work 180 or 185 days. Offer your administrators 2 or 3 vacation days and have them cut those days from their pay and either bank the days for when they retire or take the vacation day and the district saves the money. Multiply it out. It works. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments from anybody? Yep.
Raina Shaw, 13 Sweetwater Drive. I don't know what policies might be in place or not, but when you're looking at clubs that you might have to cut due to the budget restraints, perhaps you could look into having some of the high school students volunteer to kind of lead some of the clubs at the middle school or the elementary school. It could be, if there are national honors students, it could be part of their volunteer requirements for that program. And maybe just have 1 or 2 teachers where you would normally have more teachers to oversee the clubs, oversee the volunteer program, that the high school students take leadership roles with the other schools.
I'm going to let Mr. Levis respond to that. I know there are contractual obligations, and that's why so many clubs are run and it's teacher-led, because there's lots of parents that would gladly volunteer and not get paid and run a club. But again,
So I guess tonight, when people come out, I'm just going to listen and take everything in. And, you know, I just appreciate the fact that people come up and throw out ideas, and that doesn't always happen. You know, I've been to many meetings or observed many meetings in the community where when individuals don't like what's being said, sometimes there's hooting and hollering or finger pointing. So I just want to thank you for coming up and giving some suggestions. And we are looking at different types of programs. I'm not going to say specifically in terms of the clubs, but we're looking at different ways of bringing students down from our high school and into the middle school and the elementary schools. We had a program a couple of years ago with Mr. Smith. If you're familiar with Mr. Smith, he runs the music, the band at the high school. And we did a mentoring program where he brought his high school students down, and they connected with one of the elementary schools with students that teachers had identified that really would benefit from a mentoring, but it was through music. Mm-hmm. And so it was a great program. So I think the more that we can do that, it benefits the high school students, it benefits the elementary and middle school students. So thank you.
thank you.
And thanks for thinking outside the box.
Evening. Jim McCallum, 251 Reed Ave. I was one of the parents that said something to Donna earlier today. So there's a lot going on here. The fact of the matter is, I think you've all done as good a job as you probably can, probably more. I mean, so there should be a positive night in the sense that teachers are coming back and, hey, we don't have to deal with all the what ifs. But with that said, I'm still hearing a lot of talk about clubs And let me say right off the bat 2 things. No one loves sports more than I do. I mean, grew up playing them, still play. I play in the over 40 league in the town. Thank God it's over 40. But I still play in that. My kid plays in basketball. He was on the tennis team that went to the state championship. So, I mean, I'm involved with all that, and it has a value. There's no question about it. However, by saying, if we're going to concentrate on getting rid of clubs and not sports, what are we saying to those kids that are in the clubs? Are we saying that you're not valued as much as the kids that are in sports? Because if we're talking about not being divisive, then we need to look at that as well. And I think we need to look at the importance of some of these clubs. My kid is in drama. I'll say the other thing that I want to say, right? Neither one of my kids are in the middle school or elementary. So I could sit here and say, this isn't going to affect me, I'm good. But the fact of the matter is, my son, who's in drama, has absolutely, without question, flourished and done so well at the high school level as a freshman because of drama. And my other son because of music, and he's also in the band. Those are their core groups. Those are the groups that those kids look for and find. My kid he's a little awkward. He's a little, he's outgoing, but he's not a sports kid. Never liked sports. So you're going into freshman year in high school and you're going, who am I going to connect with? Who are my peers? Who do I look to? And for him, it was drama. And I can tell you without question, being involved with both of my kids from day one, that they're not a nicer bunch of, with all due respect, not a nicer bunch of kids than that drama group. They were like family. And as a freshman, he hung out with seniors, hung out with kids. Didn't matter your socioeconomic background, didn't matter your religious background, didn't matter if you had handicap, didn't matter what your sexual orientation was. It was so inclusive. And I can say this because I volunteered. I was there for both plays, helped set up, play, all that. It's not about me, but the point is I was there and I saw it. So I know what it is. And I'm not saying you're going to just get rid of drama or whatever. But I'm saying we have to look at what are the benefits of that. In this society today, we talk so much about bullying, right? And that's a big hot button, subject, and it should be. But when you look at programs like some of these, they're part of the solution. They're not part of the problem. So I know it all costs money. I know you've got to come up with cuts. I get that. But like you've all been saying, we got to share the pain. And I haven't heard a whole lot of talk about sports tonight. And again, I don't want to see any of those go either, but I'm also pushing for the clubs because as much as I love sports, I also see the value in what some of these clubs are doing. And if you're talking about bullying, there was no more inclusive club than drama that I saw. And it's not just drama. I mean, the music and all that, those are important too. But I'm just saying specifically from what I saw, it wasn't anything more inclusive than that. So just when you're making these decisions, and I know they're hard, and I know it's not easy, but I'm just saying we got to look at the whole picture and not just the dollars and cents. And I'm not saying that's all you're doing, but are there other ways can we do it? Can we fund programs at 50% and then leave it up to the boosters or the parents to somehow fundraise? My son was part of the freshman basketball team. There was no funding. Luckily, we were lucky. There was a parent that stepped forward and funded the whole thing. That was awesome. But I would have paid. All right. The lacrosse. I know people that are on the lacrosse team. Every year they're selling raffle tickets and they're running all kinds of fundraisers. How are they funded? So how is this any different? I mean, so give people the opportunity to come together as a community. So don't just abolish them or dismiss them. Just say, okay, how can we do this better? What about my son's in the culinary program? That program's practically self-sufficient with the way they work at the cafe, and maybe you can expand the hours and maybe have a little bit more income coming from that. What about automotive? I mean, if these kids are learning for automotive, I don't know what the ins and outs are, but I mean, if you had parents or people coming in there, maybe they had their oil changes done there. You give your kids training and you charge them a few bucks. All these are things, same thing with haircuts with people that that do cosmetology. There are options. There are things that maybe we can do that we got to think outside the box to try and bring this together. But it's got to be shared. It's got to be equal. It can't just be about the clubs per se. We got to look at the whole picture. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I ask a related question to that comment?
Sure.
Of the superintendent? And it's clearly, I have no idea what the situation is. So, related to sports, do we have any of our sports or co-ops, or are they all our own?
Sorry. The hockey is a co-op, I believe.
The girl hockey?
Girls hockey, I'm sorry. Girls hockey is a co-op. And, yeah.
Okay, that was my question.
So
That was it.
I just want to respond, and I appreciate, I know we've had a conversation recently. So the challenge for me is like, so we're in this moment of time right here. This budget started in October of whatever the year we're in, 1918. And, you know, and Mrs. Aronakis is right. We've increased class size. We've reduced options for students. And yet what I want to, you know, not to disagree with Mrs. Aronakis at all, but we haven't just thrown it out and say, well, this is as good as it gets, because we've been doing a lot of work to focus on improving student performance. And, you know, I'm going to throw out tonight just that, you know, because we get criticized a lot. I read, you know, I don't read Facebook locally, but people share with me how we're mediocre, and I disagree vehemently that we're mediocre. We have one of the best early childhood, several people have recognized organizations in the state. We have by far the most active pound for pound, you know, ROTC program after the upheaval that took place when we lost the U.S. Air Force endorsement. We have amazing athletes. We have amazing drama. My daughter, just, you know, my daughter was in 40 plays through kindergarten through high school, if it wasn't for that. So we don't take anything lightly, but we're keeping our focus on improving. Like, if you've ever heard me speak, it's about, like Mr. Pearson said, everything. We have to be everything to everybody. We're a public school. We've made cuts to sports. We've cut line items, you know, because it's a larger budget. We've cut referees. We've cut transportation money. We've cut equipment money. So we're looking at, like I said, I know it's $40,000, which doesn't sound like much, but, you know, we don't want to cut any of this, and we want to make sure, I guess, no matter what we do here, we're going to alienate somebody. But we're hoping that we can find ways around this, as we have everything else, and continue to move forward with our career tech. The point you brought up, we had a subcommittee that looked at the career tech. We also had somebody else come in and look at, you know, how can we market, like oil changes. So some of the challenges are, we're a teaching institute. So an oil change, you can't go in and sit in your car and get an oil change in 10 minutes. You may have to drop your car for the day, right? But we're looking at marketing, like the Naughty Oak Room. If you've never been there, it's the best deal. You know, we've talked about little things like even parking. You know, we've got to designate an area, because when I invite someone for lunch and they're 20 minutes late because they've been circling the school to find a parking space, it's not good customer service. So these are all things that I'll take responsibility for as a superintendent. But I just want to say, tonight we're sitting here, and I know this is the entry point, but there's not a person in this room, you know, and I'm looking at everybody here, and I know many people sitting in here, that this is not a situation we want to be in, you know? And somebody said to me, and I think, Donna, you in an email, like, is this going to be every single year? It's like, I can't take this every year, you know? I can't take it this year, you know? And I still have a few days left till July 1st, and I'm sure you feel the same way, you know? But we've got to, you know, my attitude is we'll figure this out. And I was telling somebody the other day, every day I have to give myself a pep talk, because I don't have a lot of other people giving me a pep talk, you know? I come in and there's this thing, today we're dealing with food service stuff, and it's like, you know, thank God I have a good heart. That's all I can say. But we've got to figure this out. But the key with that is we, you know, and for me, I try to do the right thing and stay out of the political aspect, because I know we're, you know, like nonpartisan in this, but there's so much politics, and everything's politics. So I just want to say that we're not going to make decisions lightly. But we've made, I cut the middle school librarian last year, probably one of the worst decisions I made, but I had to make it. I still take heat for that all the time. And we have to figure that out before the school year starts. So there's a lot going on, and I just want you to know that I hear and I support everything you're saying. But at the end of the day, still got to make some decisions.
I appreciate that. And the reason I can't, because I tried to start off by trying to be positive and trying to, because I do believe that I think that we have the potential here. I think we have people in place. We have people in politics that can get stuff done, can get the right things done. I think we have others that we need, need some work with, but that's a different argument. But the point is that, I think we do have an opportunity. There is a lot of positive to work on. So I don't want that to be missed in all this. The point is just that we're talking about this or that. Something's got to go. Something's got, like you said, somebody's going to feel the pain. Something's going to happen. And I just, for me, I felt like I want to be, I had this discussion with my wife earlier tonight. It's, she's kind of like, well, why are you going to another meeting? You've heard it. Because I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And a lot of us have sat back and not gotten involved. I've gotten involved with my kids doing all their many activities and all that. But as far as this level, I haven't gotten involved as much. So I'm trying to. So, but I totally understand where you're coming from and how much work it is. And I'm not saying any of this is taken lightly. So, and part of the reason I said this in the beginning, and I was remiss by not bringing it up, the reason my son flourished and all that is because of the middle school drama. And I hope I was implying that it wasn't just at the high school. Mrs. LeBron and Mrs. LaChance and all the other teachers and volunteers do such a phenomenal job. So it starts somewhere, and I just don't want that to be lost. I mean, hopefully we can find a way to kind of balance it out. That's all. So thanks again.
Thank you so much.
And thanks for offering solutions. So, and if you want to sign up for a subcommittee, apparently we're starting a list tonight. So by all means, because that may be, even revenue, being creative, you have some good ideas on revenue. Maybe we have to have some sort of specific subcommittee just on looking at revenue generation. So.
I actually was just going to suggest that, Luke. You're in my brain. Get away from me. You're in my brain. I was just going to suggest that maybe we should have a subcommittee to look at bringing in revenue and, helping with the budget. That way you got the community involved. You've got school committee members, even town council members. It's just something to think about.
To support that discussion, not that I'm on Facebook as much as people think I am, I did see Mr. Wazika post something that he's accepting applications for the town's version of a town manager budget advisory committee. He received over 30 applications for that.
Wow.
Nice.
That is very telling and encouraging, that if we did something the same, not that this is actually pretty good attendance, sorry. Sometimes the attendance is not so full, but it is encouraging that there might be that interest from the community in helping us out as well.
And that could be what you're looking for, getting the community engaged 24/7.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a wonderful idea.
And I'm not on Facebook at all, so.
Well, we've got lots of work to do, obviously. Any other further comments or concerns about this particular topic? Seeing none, we can move on to number 10, which is the vote to approve the budget that was approved on June 14th on the all-day referendum. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2020 general fund operating budget in the amount of $73,382,939 with $47,078,580 coming from local appropriations and the capital budget of $200,000 coming from local appropriations.
I second the motion.
Oh, yes, June 3rd, I'm sorry. To approve the budget voted on and approved at June 13th, all-day referendum.
I second the.
Any further questions from, yes, James?
Going to be the skunk at the garden party, to borrow a phrase from Mr. Clunian. I saw the ballot, clearly, because I voted. Are we confident that that capital budget will be allocated toward the schools? I know it was presented that way during the
I'm
financial
confident, but I mean,
But
You know,
on the.
do you know something that we don't
No,
know?
on
I
the
guess.
actual budget, it did not say the capital budget would be allocated toward the schools, and that has me concerned.
Sarah, was that line itemed out in their budget?
So the issue is, and I raised this with them too, is that it said $200,000 dedicated for capital. So, I mean, I do have email communication and at every single, public meeting, which fortunately is all recorded, Mr. Wizzica said that that is going towards school this year.
Good point.
I can tell you that when I met with him one-on-one, I tried very hard to push a commitment that that would be an ongoing 200,000, and that was where it was kind of pulled back a little bit to say we would like to, but there's capital needs on the town too. So I'm not sure if that was the reason for that exclusion on there, but I did echo those same concerns, and I'm pretty confident Mr. Wazika has held true to his word through this entire budget process, so I'm confident that that will happen this fiscal year, but that fight for capital will definitely be ongoing.
And I just want to say, I mean, while we were questioning how we were going to use it, I want to acknowledge the trust we built. And I think that Mr. Wazika has been very good about keeping to his word. So I don't have a doubt that they will stick to that.
Yeah.
I mean,
He's a pretty stand-up guy.
Not worried about Mr.
I will count on
Wazika.
the parents to come out and pick it if that does not come to fruition.
Definitely not worried about Mr. Wazika.
Okay. So I think the best information that we have right now, and we're going to trust that the 200,000 is coming to schools. And so I would recommend that we continue with this motion as stated. Any other questions from the committee?
Just checking that any cuts come to us first before, any, okay.
Okay.
I'm just checking.
Anything from the public before
Details, yes.
I call for the vote? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to, and I just want to thank everyone again for coming forward with your ideas and being concerned enough to come to this meeting and be concerned that the cuts that we have to make are the best for all of our children. And the fact that we probably need to put together a subcommittee of citizens, perhaps a couple of school committee members, we are more than willing and happy to do that. This committee supports public engagement and parent engagement. I've been an advocate of parental engagement since I first got involved with PTA with my child, which is many, many, many years ago. So the whole key of getting parental involvement is, it is a difficult thing to do because people tend not to get involved unless there's a fire. So I'm hopeful that as things die down and people say, well, things seemed pretty good, that they won't fall away from the original commitment. So I am very much encouraged, and we will find some way to get it out to our building principals to somehow maybe in September even, at our parent orientation, that all in building orientations, that there'll be some sign-up sheets for people to actually sign up.
We'll do something this summer.
Yeah,
I mean,
even this summer.
I think, I agree
It's hard
with
to
what's
get,
said.
it's hard to get a hold of parents in the summer.
No, but while things are still,
Yep.
energy's still high, I think that's the time. I don't disagree. I agree with that, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on to 11, which is the superintendent's report. Mr. Levis.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I forgot what I was going to say, though. That doesn't help be brief. I'll jump into the end of the school year. I just wanted to thank the entire community. Obviously, the support that took place in terms of passing the all-day referendum, and I can't thank everybody that supported that enough. And like I said before, it was just very positive and uplifting. I also want to thank all of our educators, staff, parents. The week of graduation, I might have said this before, but to me was, if you went through the elementary schools, middle schools, when the graduates went through with their caps and gowns and you would graduation night, you'd see that, you would know that this was a community that was in crisis. It was so positive and uplifting, and how people could put aside, we had almost 200 teachers there greeting the students as they came in, and staff, support staff, and you wouldn't know that we had just laid off 385 individuals. You know, people, the focus was on what it should be on students. And I've been to, that was my 4th graduation, and I thought it was again, just the best graduation I've been in. And it just showed the spirit of this community. I think I sent an email out to people that I've been challenged about what Ochre Pride was, but that really defined to me what Ochre Pride was. You know, if you've ever seen that honor table that the ROTC, I know we saw it, but it always brings tears to my eyes about the men, you know, the different branches of the military and missing in action. And it just was really uplifting and positive. And I wanted to thank everybody for that week, because I think that set us off in the right direction in terms of the following week and the results. Again, I know this has been tough. It's been a tough year. But I think we've made progress. There's a lot of accolades that our teachers, our students have won this year. I just wanted to thank everybody. The last thing I wanted to say about the end of the year is we just had some really positive, and I don't have all the details, we had some really positive information about our SAT scores, and I'm sure we'll relay that later on with specifics, but the state's SAT scores went down. Our SAT scores went up. In fact, and I'm going to throw Mr. Chase under the bus here, because well, I guess I'll throw myself under the bus, because I'll just say I misquoted him. But I believe in one of his emails, and correct me if I'm wrong, any high school people here, that in terms of our math scores, we had a 38% increase in terms of students that passed math. Does that sound right?
The math was based on the number of kids that exceeded from last time, so it wasn't proportional.
Okay.
But they definitely want to go 7 grades.
So I think it shows that, though, just for the community to know that we've been really working, our teachers have been working, our administrators, on looking at what the data shows us.
Yeah.
Especially specifically around the SATs, the educators, administrators put together 3 Saturday sessions. We had over 180 students attend to take the SATs, and it made a huge difference. We can see that. So for those people, the naysayers that say, well, you know, we're not, you know, we're in the middle of the pack. There's a lot of things that we're doing at every level that's making a difference. And I just wanted to highlight that. That's a really positive thing to get. I think that I received that email yesterday, but I want to share that. And again, I don't have all the details. We don't have all the details, but it'll be interesting when we can start to compare ourselves with other districts and look at the progress, because I think that's important. So I want to highlight that.
Can I just say something? That's for all the naysayers that say the teachers just work 6 hours a day, 180 days a year. They work a lot more.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, because we talked a little bit about, is a lot of that came at the building level, people spending extra time with kids and making sure that they were well prepared for the SATs. And that was presented to us a little while back. So that work paid off, it had results, and that is what's going to move us forward from here on out. So thank you to all the teachers who spent that time.
So were you done, Mr.
I'm done.
Superintendent?
I was done
There
an
was
hour
school
ago.
safety on your thing.
I know.
You don't want to talk about it? Okay.
I'll bring it up next time.
All right. Moving on to citizens' comments. Are there any comments from the citizens gathered? If you haven't already had your say, please come forward. Yes?
Hello.
Hi.
Dottie Jackvoni, 552 Cars Trail, Green. I think I heard Mr. Pearson say that you're looking for volunteers to get on committees or help with something. Put my name down. I'll help you out. Whatever committees.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, she is.
I always worry when someone starts the comment with, I think I heard Mr. Pearson say.
I get worried too. That was a joke. A joke.
Anyway. Alrighty then, I guess we can go to scheduling the next meeting. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that the next meeting of the school committee be scheduled for Thursday, July 11th at 6 p.m. at Coventry Town Hall.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 5-0. Is there a motion to adjourn? I have 9:01.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that the meeting be adjourned at 9:01 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 5-0. Thank you all for coming and participating.